out here doing the Ultimate Fighter. What a process. If you look at the history of the Ultimate Fighter, I mean, if you look at how many, I believe it to be the toughest tournament in sports, not just our sport. Like, I've really never seen anything like it. And I got that from my uncle. My uncle was in the 1964 Olympic gold medal basketball team to Tokyo. And he told me, when I explained this process to him, he said, Chael, aside from Olympic Village, and my uncle went on, he won multiple NBA championships. He said, I've never seen anything like this Ultimate Fighter tournament, aside from the Olympic Games, where you live with the competition.
I couldn't do
You
that.
eat with the competition. You ride to the venue with the competition. And then you put that all in reverse and you go back home and back to the dinner table together. That is a unique mental toughness.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a hazing process to prove you're one of the guys? These dudes that come through the Ultimate Fighter have proven they are sincere to the question of, do you want to be a fighter?
Yeah, I would like to add, as people who don't follow fighting, okay, they're literally in the same houses with people. Don't have to get locked in a cage and fight. When I fight someone, I have to make myself hate them and not like them. I couldn't imagine you're eating dinner, you're laughing with these people, you're hanging out with them, you're riding to the bus with them, and then you're not knowing you might be fighting these guys in a week. That is intense. And they don't have phones. They can't call their girlfriends, their wives, their children, their dads, their moms. You know, they're getting busted up. Imagine the brutality of who's there. You know, I've helped coach a couple of seasons, and it's tough.
You get connected with the guys.
Yeah,
for sure.
We get really close with
Yeah.
them.
By the way, you look great. What are you doing? Are you on a new diet? Are you doing
I've just been I haven't I was lifting for a while. I've been kind of lazy. Just been grappling. I'm gonna start lifting again soon.
Do you do vegan? Do you have a specific
vegetarian? Yeah, I'm vegetarian. Not vegan, but vegetarian. I do eggs and stuff.
Do you do any of this stuff with the time of the day where they fast, the intermittent fasting?
I do that kind of naturally. So I didn't really, a lot of times I don't eat till midday. I don't do it like intentionally. If I wake up hungry, I'll eat, but generally I'm just not hungry in the morning. And then I go about my day, work out, do some things, then eat, you know, about 1 or 2 or somewhere around there.
And are you coffee in the morning?
Yeah.
Good about coffee.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, coffee every morning. But I've heard these guys that are like, oh, they're stirring the butter in it.
Oh yeah.
Stirring the coconut cream. I never got into that, but I have read some science on it, which is pretty intriguing.
What's the science say?
The science says it's great, and it actually says that fat, the scoop of the butter, and you can't stir it in. It's got to be blended. There's something about the speed that it goes in to get it to actually break down. But that it can coat your stomach and essentially allow you a couple of hours.
Yeah, because I always
hours without food.
Yeah, because I don't like to eat before I work out. Are you probably the same?
Yeah, definitely.
So what weight are you? Are you allowed to talk about the teams you're coaching here?
Yeah. We're doing 125 and 170.
Oh wow.
They didn't keep the moratorium on the secrets the way they have some others.
It used to be so strict.
Yeah, like they let these guys out. They even
they're getting a little.
Who's going to be there and who's on what team, and it's very interesting. A lot of the show, which the reality is it has nothing to do with the two coaches, but the show gets built around
the coaches.
These two coaches.
Who's the other coach?
Daniel Cormier.
Oh, wow.
But a very unique situation where it's the first time ever, to my understanding, where the coaches are not going to fight. You're
not going to fight Daniel?
Yeah. No, we even thought maybe they were going to do like a grappling or something like this, something silly, but they're not. It will be nothing like that. So we just have this competition, try to get these kids ready. It's an incredible training camp. I mean, you've got perfect bodies. You get any coaches that you want in the world's best facility. In fact, they tell you on day one, the UFC tells you, if there's any piece of equipment that you would like that isn't here, tell us and we'll get it overnighted in. So when I tell you it's the nicest facility in the world, like, it is truly the perfect facility. And if you take that the right way and you go put a good 40 days together, you for sure will leave better than you showed up.
And how cool is it? I think your first fight was like 97. Look at from 97 till now, how the sport and the UFC has grown. It's like there's real money. There was no money when we first started. We were just crazy kids that like were fighting for I have no idea why. Now it's this massive industry where guys are becoming multimillionaires.
Remember the argument about this is human cockfighting. This isn't a real sport. This has never hit anywhere. I was with those guys. I thought it was barbaric. I just didn't think we had to say stop.
It is barbaric.
Yeah. I just didn't think we had to apologize for it. I did not think it was going to be anything but a fringe. I did not think it would be on mainstream. Like the claims that Dana White came in and made, for him to be able to actually back those claims up, it was illegal in 49 states.
Yeah, I used to have to fight on any reservations. I'm sure same with you.
Sure. And he wasn't some rich, well-connected guy at that time.
The Fertittas, yeah. They're the ones
that
they let him. The Fertittas good. Did you have a good relationship with the Fertittas? They were actually good too. You know, they did a good job. Lorenzo was always, took care of me sometimes behind the scenes, and they did some good stuff.
They were accessible, and a lot of fighters didn't know that. You had to seek them out.
Yeah.
But if you ever tried to get Frank and Lorenzo on the phone, you would get them on the phone. They would talk.
I didn't talk to Frank that much, but Lorenzo a few times, and he was always great.
They cared. They genuinely did care about the athletes and understood. And even when they sold, Dana revealed something somewhat recently. They sold to WME and Ari Emanuel, but they said they had other offers. They went with Ari because they believed in his vision and his infrastructure to actually take the brand and the guys that are going to be left behind. He thought that they could take him further, and they passed up on a number of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, and it looks like, I don't know what's behind the scenes, but it looks like he's pretty much giving Dana a free reign to run how he wants. Dana probably makes him a lot of fucking money, so he's like, just do what you want.
You know, and WWE too. You know, Ari really stayed out of that. And that was Vince at the time. When Ari bought in, he bought in on Vince. Vince ends up leaving, Triple H comes in, and the stock price has doubled. You know, not just because of Triple H, but TKO was $70 at this time last year. It's now $158.
Wow.
It is literally doubled. They had it valued as a company at $22 billion. This, again, was 12 months ago.
This is just the pro wrestling.
Yes.
Or both, the whole
UFC
company.
and WWE, which then made up
Both
TKO.
together. Wow.
But together they had that valued at $22 billion. That felt a little high to me.
Yeah, that's insane.
Consider the UFC had just sold for a record price of 4.2. That seemed a little high. But the stock price was $70 when he made that claim. The stock price is now $157. That would, off of those numbers, that would mean the company would be valued at about $50 billion. That is so exciting. That is unbelievable for a sport that you and I started in, never thinking we'd make a living at.
No.
Never thought we could sit down and share and have an audience that would care what we think. In a pretty short period, 25 years, that's not that long.
Oh, that's insane. And the sport, UFC first launched in 93. Look how much martial arts have changed in that time period, too. And not just the business side, like the skill of martial artists, where it was all individual sports, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, you know, karate, kickboxing. And now there's complete, there's never been a transition in any sport, I would imagine, like that.
You know, you made an interesting comment a minute ago. You said that when you were getting ready to fight somebody that you had to have a conflict.
Yeah.
Were you able to come up with a conflict with St. Pierre? Because he was so
really, he was so likable. Yeah,
this day.
it was hard. It was hard.
You were the best jiu-jitsu, not him. He says Jake Shields is the best ever.
It was hard to hate him, to be honest, because I always respected him a lot. And we actually became friends after. He's one of the only guys that became friends after we fight.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, such a good dude. So it was hard getting anger towards him.
You know, and by the way, I felt him in practice before. And one of my big thoughts when I went home the day after working out with him is I can't believe Jake and I can't believe John Fitch and Matt Hughes haven't talked about his strength.
Oh, he's
why if nobody ever talk about that? Nobody ever brings up how
talk about his speed and his timing, but his strength, he just grabs it. Even recently I trained jiu-jitsu with him, he just grabs you and he's so strong and he explosive. You know, the guy is one of the craziest athletes I've ever seen. And a great dude. I think at the top, there's so many great guys involved in fighting as well.
The concept, though, of the argument of St. Pierre versus Khabib, I like that argument. I wish. I mean, that's a fantasy. If somebody could have got those.
And they were trying to fight each other, too. Do you know that?
Dude, if they would have wrestled, I wouldn't care if they arm wrestled.
Yeah.
If they had some kind of conflict and then conflict resolution, it would be very helpful.
Yeah, no, I've trained them both.
George.
So, yeah.
George would have beat him.
I've trained them both, so I don't really want to share my opinions, but I think that's a good guess.
Oh, you did get a feel Khabib.
Yeah.
I never got.
He's obviously really, really good, but I feel like George is just that explosion and the run him down. I don't know, a tough fight. Depends on.
But tight for sure.
Well, also, I think George will have to cut weight to make the fight, though, so we have to add that factor in. Is George going to feel the same at 75s as 55s? And that's a big factor to add.
And I was reversing it. When I do this mythical fight, I make Khabib go up to 70. And I think George
definitely has the advantage on that. And Khabib could easily fight 170s.
Do you want to know what I almost had? Is because to your point, I have touched about everybody. Some practice room or in a fight. Chimaev. Was all this hype, and I got to the PI one day, and Chimaev was there, and he was in the ring to work out with Latifi, but Latifi was late. And Jay, I was so close. I wanted to take my just hey, give me 5 minutes. Just let's go hard for 5 minutes. Just so I know.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it. I chickened out. I had my boots on, and he was.
He's probably going to go really hard with you the way he is.
And we never met, so it was a little weird.
It would have been kind of like a challenge. Yeah, he would have taken it like a challenge, probably.
But I do regret it. I'd love to be here right now with you and tell you what I felt between Chimaev and St. Pierre, just for example.
So cool. We've trained with and land fought like all the greatest.
Yeah.
We said, look, dude, I'm actually a tough question.
Okay.
I was at that Anderson Silva fight.
Okay.
We were dominating. It was one of the most exciting fights I've ever been. You were just mauling him
every day
for 4.5 rounds in that triangle choke, man. That must have just devastated you.
Devastating. And
it's even hard bringing it up right now. That was just such a devastating moment.
It was harder. It was harder a while ago. We at any rate, I guess time heals all wounds.
Yeah.
But I never had a confidence in that fight. I was only on top of him so much
Mhm.
because of the urgency I felt on my feet. I did not want to stand with him.
Yeah.
And then when I got on the ground, I was never really that confident. At that point in my life, I had never had a jiu-jitsu practice. We had MMA, we
You
worked
underestimate
on
your own
jiu-jitsu.
skills.
Yeah, I wasn't a white belt or a blue belt. I had no belt. I had never had on a gi. And it was just one of those things that if I could go back in time, I would not have skipped the most basic training. And I came through Team Quest, and after that fight, they actually came up with a curriculum of you're going to practice this before you get into the fighter room. But there was no this at the time. We just had a fighter room. Every day at 3, we would put gloves on and we would go in there, and there might be a defense to an armbar, maybe. There might be you drive in and pull his hands down if he guillotines you, maybe. Once a month, these things would come up. And my only point is when I was on the ground with Anderson, I was happier to be on the ground than I was standing up, but there was never a time I was comfortable. So when he gets me in something so basic, it's like we could go back to that moment.
You almost allowed
He'd
it.
probably
You
get me.
almost like allowed it.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't hate to say that, but it's almost like you didn't believe in yourself. That's
That's right.
That's why it was hard for me to bring the fight up, because
Yes.
it felt like you defeated yourself. So it was like,
That's what I was trying to say. And I
it
didn't know how.
wasn't like, exactly.
I
So
didn't
it's-
believe in myself there. Yeah.
that's exactly what I saw, and I think that's why this is a touch your fight to bring the other ones, because I saw that and I'm like, oh my god, that must have been like,
Yeah.
that must eat you up.
Yeah. Nobody was more surprised at how that fight was going than me.
Yeah.
And I lost.
Dominating. It was so exciting.
I'd never been to a 5th round before. And the level of fatigue.
That's
that
a good
you
point.
reach-
That was your first 5 rounder. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
And my corner had told me it was the 4th round. And how weird if somebody came with an excuse and said they couldn't keep track of the rounds, but I had never been there, and I
We
was.
thought you had another round.
I thought there was another round,
Oh.
and I always wonder, a horse will run harder if the barn is inside, and I've always wondered about myself. If I knew there was just a minute left, what if I got off him like a wrestling match? What if I ran? What if I pulled guard and held on him? And who knows what you might have done? And I do wonder that at times.